Good morning, everyone. This is our year-end show. In the years here, we have next week will be December 31st, which is New Year's Eve. Are we here next week? Okay, so we're going to do part A today, and whatever we don't finish, we'll do part B on the 31st. I believe I have Gordon on the line. Good morning.
Good morning.
I need to start off the program with my disclaimer. When I state things here on the radio, it's the information that I have, what I have in front of me or here. I do not want to give the impression, and sometimes it is, that it's authoritative. So it is really the information that I have in hand. And then sometimes, Gordon, you may correct it or whatever, but it is mostly the information that I have and the things that I am in contact with. And so we're going to start with the year in review, Gordon. And why don't you take it? And while I get my information now.
Well, it's an interesting way to start out the show with a disclaimer, but and for the regular listeners, we call things out the way we see them. Unfortunately, there's a lot to call out when it comes to government and lack of performance.
Okay, and I was hoping you were going to lead it down that road. So let me bring up my email. Okay, I just got, and I want to thank Senator Rockland's office. Earlier in this week, I was, I guess, complaining or being a crank on information, and to his credit, he said he did not know, he didn't bluff, and he'd get back to me. And let me just pick up, let me give you the response from his office, and that's what I like. That's what I like from them. So his office, it's a Department of State. And I'm going to give a direct quote that his office sent me. So February 22nd, Task Force in frustration, we did a white paper called Enough is Enough. We compiled a summary of everything we have done since the task force gave the Oversight Committee the history of the task force, why it was started, and we started with a list, because they always want a list of properties that we saw. And
again, for clarification, you're talking about a list of properties that we feel that the municipalities involved are not enforcing the New York State's fire and building codes.
Correct. And this list was compiled back in 2012, and then we added some more. And in particular, we added two other properties. One was 4 Hopal Lane, which we believe, in the information that I have in hand, contribute to the death of the resident. The name of the resident is Mrs. Kaufman at 4 Hopal Lane, the owner of that house. The second property that I noted, was the Matis fire on 19 Main Street that happened back in February of 18. If Chris, 2021, the beginning of this year. And we noted of the type of conditions that one observer observed and told you directly that this was like third world country, like in Haiti after the major hurricane, how this unbelievable store was there. We found that dating back from 1971 till that day of that fire, that they didn't enact on it. And we were warning them, these are typical, this is not an exception of the rule, but rather typical of lack of enforcement. And then, of course, we had that tragic fire that we lost another resident, and we lost a firefighter, Jared Lloyd. So I wrote this letter. It was 28 pages long, and it was sent to the New York State Department of Building and Codes. It was sent to the oversight, complaining. Michael Miller's on the line. Okay, he can jump in as soon as I finish my dialogue. And we said enough is enough, and we said, and I named building inspectors and their supervisors, telling them they're not doing their job. April 1st, I got a response, and they told me I have no recourse to go after Brian Tullison, Erica Krieger, and John D'Alessandro, who happens to be in charge. They have no, and I have no recourse to complain. So their ineptness, which I believe, in the opinion that I have, that they have blood on their hands for the death of the two residents, Mrs. Kaufman and the other one, which I do not know the resident's name, as well as our Spring Valley Columbian Engine Company firefighter, Jared Lloyd. And so in April 1, he said he needed more information. He needed from the task force, I need to cite the code. I need to cite the violations, which we did. And April 29th, we sent.
Now, keep in mind, a layman would not be able to do that.
No.
So you reached out to a code official who knows the codes and submitted another document with the the sections of the code that we're alleging are not being enforced.
Correct.
Even though many, if not most of those properties, we've already submitted it multiple times to the state. And
right.
The form that you're referring to on Dario and Tullison and Krieger would be, there's a form if you and I, as civilians, wanted to file a complaint. It starts at the top. So you filed a complaint. It was kind of audacious what you did. You filed a complaint against the commissioner, the deputy commissioner, and Ms. Krieger, who is one of the monitors, has been assigned to Rampo in Spring Valley, and is extremely knowledgeable, probably one of the most knowledgeable people in the state. She's an architect. That they're not doing their jobs, and they're still not doing their jobs, despite everything that's taken place.
Right. So we did that, and since April 29th, I haven't had a response. Now, I've been being a pain in you-know-whose butt with the following. Assemblyman Zabrowski, Assemblyman Lawler, and Senator Rockland and Senator Jaffe. Now, these are public servants. They all have done a wonderful job. Ken Zabrowski has led the charge from day one, but he has not even gotten any response. Mr. Lawler also told me he didn't get a response. Senator Rockland, which I spoke to this Wednesday, is it Tuesday? It's Tuesday or Wednesday that the senators and legislators are on, Will? Tuesday. And I implore everybody, if there's any reason to listen to this radio station, it should be Tuesday. You get to speak to our elected officials in Albany. It's a shame we don't get our congressmen anymore. It would be nice, but I'll deal with that on another day. However, so I spoke to Senator Rockland, as I said earlier. He wasn't sure what I was referring to. I said his office knew about it. And within 24 hours, this is the response his office got from the Department of State. And I quote, these are still being looked at. As I mentioned previously, we've been going back and forth with the municipalities, and when we receive information, it leads to follow-up questions, and we hope to have a response to this letter soon. So I wrote the letter February 22nd, the deadly fire, and this letter was all after that. The deadly fire was in February 18th. I had to respond with more details. March. I wrote the letter in April, and it's now December 24th, Christmas Eve, and they're still working on it. As I testified in the Senate, there's a Yiddish word for what this response is. And I will say it. It's bullshit. Okay? And this is the response of non-active. And this is exactly a demonstrative way of public servant bureaucracy that have lifetime jobs, and nothing other than sexual misconduct is going to get them out of that position.
I think that there is a pattern here, and it doesn't even matter who the commissioners are. The prior commissioner was State Codes, who was he really tried. He supported what we were doing down here. The day we kicked off the Illegal Housing Task Force in 2009, I believe, he was down here with his senior staff and showed his support. When he left, he retired. He called me and he said, our job, his department, which is, I love to use the official name. They made a long name. We call it the New York State Building and Fire Code Department.
NISBOC?
Secretary of State.
Yeah.
But he said that our job is to protect the residents of New York State, and we're not being allowed to do it fairly and equally across the state. In other words, in certain areas, they're not allowed to enforce the codes.
Right. Right. That's the second.
Other commissioners and other departments have said almost the same thing, different terminology, but basically we're not allowed. We're prevented by the attorneys for the Secretary of State. We're not allowed by the second floor, the governor's office.
Right.
And then it filters down from the state.
Right.
And the federal. We've been to federal authorities, and they know what's going on in this area. And there's a lack of enforcement, and on a county level as well.
Right. So we'll discuss that in a moment further. We have a caller.
Good morning, Junior Commander. Okay, so I like to thank you so much for bringing to our attention that on Tuesdays, some of our representatives in Albany are being interviewed, and you also touched about Mondare Jones, a congressman here. Well, so you will not feel bad that he doesn't respond. Over a number of months, I tried to reach his office, try to talk to him, okay, about age discrimination, not just for myself, for a lot of seniors here, but I guess this is not important to him.
No, it's not. And to that point, Michael Miller from Coupon, are you still here? Michael, are you on the line?
Do you want me to put him on?
Oh, absolutely.
All righty. Michael Miller is on.
Okay, Michael.
Yes.
All right. So Michael Miller, just to your point, caller, has also tried to reach out to Mondare Jones, and we got deaf ears. I think he's a disappointment. He was a former resident of Rockland County. He knows exactly what our issues are, and to try to get him on federal issues, nobody calls us back.
He's not just a resident of Rockland County. He's a product of the East Ramapo School District.
I understand that,
but so we were hoping he would lead the charge. But to be fair, Michael explained it further. We did have a conference call with Mr. Jones, or Congressman Jones, and his chief. He gave us a half hour. The first 10 or 15 minutes, he was venting his frustration about the filibustering in Washington.
In Albany, law.
Michael, you can fill the listeners in on.
Am I still on?
Yes, you're still
yes,
on.
I'm still here.
I just want to give you some background, Michael Miller, who's on the Coupon, and then I'll let you finish your statement, Sir. Okay, go ahead,
yes,
Michael.
We did. We was tangled up with Mondare's staff, wanting more and more and more information, and I'm sure that he's familiar with what's going on here. But he did get on the call with us for about a half an hour, and he spent about 15, 20 minutes talking about the tie-up of the activity that was going on with the Biden administration's laws. And we didn't have a chance to really express to him our concerns on that call.
Because he was filibustering. Go ahead.
So we got to get back to him and to make sure that he understands that we're not going to let this go by any way, shape, or form.
Caller, continue with what your frustration is with Mr. Mondare Jones.
Okay, all right. So to be completely honest about it.
No, don't lie to us. We like honesty.
Good. Okay. So I managed to talk to two of his staff. Okay. First couldn't help me. Then I was referred to the second one. This lady took the information. And that's over, I would say, a few months. She never got back to me, okay, despite the fact that I left messages, okay. I asked to talk to the congressman himself, okay. nothing to do, and I'm talking about age discrimination, not per se for myself necessarily, but it impact a lot of seniors, okay? And I thought something that would have an impact on a federal level, that's his job, okay? He should be, as an attorney, mind you, he's an attorney, okay? He should be on it, and he should have the gumption to get with the residents and discuss it, okay? But he's a no-show, unless it's probably one of his favorite topics, okay, which has to do with, with certain things that I don't want to go into it right now. He's a no-show, okay?
I agree.
A big disappointment.
I agree.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Bye.
All right, Michael, as the president of Coupon, and we're going to hopefully talk about some of the programming changes we're going to have here in the 2022. What did you see this past year for Coupon?
Well, I've seen that I will address two parts of this. For one, Coupon is growing. We went from at the beginning of the year from 9 chapters. We now have 13, and the possibility of bringing on 3 or 4 more, not just in Rockland County, but in Orange County and in New Jersey. And understand that those chapters that we bring in, for instance, in Orange County, there's about 8 villages and hamlets, and in here in our Orangetown, there's 6 hamlets. So the number of coupons that we have is not synonymous with the number of hamlets and towns that are involved in it. And we find that some of the same problems are happening in Orange County, in Rockland County, and Bergen County, and in Ocean County, New Jersey, and other places. And we're faced with the same thing.
And what's the main, and Michael, for those who may not be familiar with Coupon and its growth, what is the factor that all of a sudden we have this spurt of concerned citizens joining Coupon? What is their frustrations, Michael?
It's irresponsible development and illegal housing. There's irresponsible development that some of the local elected officials are allowing ridiculous development that is actually destroying neighborhoods.
Yeah, and I find it funny. I don't know if you were listening earlier, but on the local news, NICEPAC is part of a global program of reforesting, in other words, planting trees to clean the air and all that. I mean, it's nice, they're part of the trees, but I don't know if Rockland County is going to be able to qualify in certain towns and villages, because everything else is getting bored up, and it's a lot easier to chop down trees without replacing what they've done. I'm pretty upset. Even where I live was beautiful, and no trees were ever replaced. We do have a caller, Michael. I just want to take the caller, and we'll continue. Yes, caller.
My caller.
Hi, it's Bob.
For the listeners, Bob Burton is a rookie in the fire department, and
only 55 years.
It's 55 years. He's been on
president of the RCVFA,
and also a outstanding court observer in the town of Ramapo. I think you and I both spent, at least to understand the court system in the town of Ramapo, we spent how long observing the court?
Years.
All right. And what was the famous word we heard from all of the 3 judges?
Adjourned.
And you don't need anything. They don't prosecute, and they take that attitude.
They levy a fine, let's say $1,500, which is the cost of doing business, and then they say, well, what about an ACD?
And for the listener,
dismissal. So
right.
Which means if you're a good boy for the next 6 months, you don't have to pay the fine. It's ridiculous.
And no record.
And no record.
And I will tell you, being an observer in the courts in Ramapo and the court in Spring Valley, there's no comparison. Spring Valley is an order of magnitude worse than what went on in Ramapo.
And
How
don't.
can it be worse?
How could it be worse? And there is some commonality in the judges, is there not?
No.
Yeah.
Yes, there is.
No.
There's a judge in Spring Valley that's also a judge in Ramapo, is he not?
Oh, yes. Well, the judge in Ramapo was then Alan Simon.
Right.
At one time, yes. But what Junior's talking about is that we have one common judge in both municipalities who, when he was running, promised us he was going to be law and order.
Yeah.
It's law
So,
and chaos.
They have,
You know,
like I said before, they have a one-word vocabulary, adjourn, and that's about the end of it. Everything that they're able to levy a fine of $5,000 per count per day. If they levy a $1,500 fine, it goes to an ACD. So come back in 6 months. You're a good boy. Goodbye.
Yeah. And I think that's also part of the frustration in the planning of the takeover in Spring Valley. You know, it's just frustrating. It's just frustrating seeing it. Which brings me to the other point. There is a gentleman that testified to the county legislator about, if he has, let's say there's 10 things he has to change and he only gets 7, he wants a little more time. Well, everybody wants a little more time, and I think the gentleman's name is Adam McCary, and it's unbelievable. He claims he didn't know who the task force was, and he'd be more than willing to meet with us.
Yeah.
Well, I have sent a whole bunch of documents, and it's like Michael Miller and Gordon Wren were privy to the communication, as well as the legislators and our county executive, Ed Day. And what we have found is, well, it turned out he was going to meet with me on December 13th. That never happened. Then he said he wanted to meet on Thursday. And then Thursday of that same week, which was the 16th, and then he would get back to me. It's like all the bureaucrats.
Justin,
Yes.
I think that the point was in all of that communication was that there wasn't a mutual agreement of getting together at a mutual time. He wanted you to succumb to his schedule without regard for yours.
And he wanted the information, and I have no trust in giving my information that it wouldn't get done or whatever.
But the main point being here is that there are 4 or 5 people that are intimately knowledgeable of all of the stuff that's going on in Spring Valley for years, and you would think that anyone that has the charter of cleaning up the problem, the main problem, would want to confer with those 4 or 5 people to get their take on exactly what is the problem and why haven't you been able to get this cleaned up in the last 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 years. But instead, what we run into is excuses. This guy, and bureaucracy. Now, I will tell you that I met with Ed Day a few days ago, and he and I discussed this because I expressed on the radio my disappointment with the county's involvement in what's going on in Spring Valley. Well, according to Adam McCrary, he had met with Ed Day. He had met with the county executives. That's what he said to the county legislatures. But Ed said he did, first time he met with the guy was after he pitched. He gave his pitch to the county legislature.
So he
So
lied.
if that's the case, someone is lying.
Right, and
but
if
the
he
point
lied
being-
once,
the point being-
wow,
But the point
That's a pretty
being,
strong words, yeah.
why not?
the
Well,
point being, Ed said that he had not met with him. I take him as his word.
I believe
and-
I would take Ed Day at his word. Yes.
Yeah, I take him at his word. Therefore, we had put up the program that was on that was recorded on WRCR last week. We had it on Coupon Rockland and Gmail, and we're getting a lot of communications about it. As of yesterday, I had it removed. Ed said that he had not met with the guy. I said that he had. So I said, okay, I'll take him at his word and I'll remove it. Now, some of the other coupons, the affiliates, still have it on their sites, and I can't order them to take any.
What are you referring to that was online that was upsetting?
There was a YouTube. There was a publication of pictures of you and me, Gordon, sitting at a table, and with the background music, background communication was the communication that went on between us and others during the last WRCR program.
That was the 17th.
That was on the 17th.
Yes.
And did we have anything to do with that?
Do we have anything to do with creating that YouTube video?
No.
Absolutely not.
We take credit for whatever we said on the radio last Friday, but we had no knowledge this was going to be put together. And,
It was skillfully put together with using stills of us and later pictures of Gordon pointing at some dilapidated housing, and we had nothing to do with it. But it was using the communication from the WRCR radio in the background of us discussing the problem.
But the fact is, Ed Day said he never met him until after the presentation. So Mr. McCurry said during the presentation, I met with Ed Day. So, and those things several times. So those things with the legislature, they take, those words seriously. And
see, the other thing too with the legislature and this whole thing was that I know that a number of the legislatures know of you and me and Gordon and what we've been doing.
Yes.
Because we've been involved with some of them. And this guy was presenting, he was scheduled to present, and evidently he was recommended by none other than John Adario from the Commissioner for Codes in the state to Spring Valley. So you think that they would have invited us to attend that session.
And the distrust we have with the government, because the problem is we don't play politics. We want accountability. And the other issue is very simple. Everybody asks for money, and we need more money to do this. I testified personally in front of Senator Skoufis and the others on his committee in December, almost 2 years ago. 2 years ago to the day, last week was to the day. And I don't need money. We're volunteers. We got it. Just pay the fines. That's how
my point exactly, Justin.
Right. We don't need.
That's my point exactly.
Yeah.
Here are 4 or 5 volunteers. There's something going on. There is a problem, and volunteers have been working on it for years and frustrated with what's going on in the system.
And nothing
it's
changes.
Not working.
Right, and nothing changes. Right.
Nothing changes is when a project takes place like Evergreen, or elected officials and others say all the right things at press conferences. But the fact of the matter is,
nothing got done.
The conditions we've been complaining about are no better. In fact, they're progressively worse.
Well, I mean, let's take the biggest thing in my craw. There are 2 pieces of property as we coming to the top of the hour. We have 261 through 271 Route 306. Okay, they got
a temporary permit to put some modular classrooms in trailers for classrooms. But
it's going more. So that property, 269, I already complained. It's now being used as a illegal dormitory. And then the biggest thing that I can't find, and maybe this radio station will ask the supervisor on Monday, how the heck did the property across 18 through 22 Fourche Road be allowed to build? I'm searching, no site plans, no anything approval other than there's a 4x6 attaching to the other house, which doesn't have a CO for the purpose, is a big attachment. How is that allowed? How is that allowed?
Michael, that's one that they, after the Senate hearing 2 years ago, We met with the supervisor and the senior staff, and they said, "Where are all these violations? We don't see them."
Gordon, and Justin, I understand, but that's in the town of Ramapo.
Right.
But let's deal with something that's real, that's happening now. Let's deal with the Route 59, the school on Route 59, which Adam McCrary went there.
On 45.
And
you mean 45. Route 45.
Yeah, North Main Street.
49 South Main Street, 32
Right.
South Madison, yes?
He went there and threatened to shut the school down if they didn't make corrections.
Right.
And is the school still operating?
Yes.
It's still operating.
Yep.
So that is the
Oh.
problem that we have been dealing with for years and years and years.
And it
This
even went,
encompassing all of the stuff that's going on in Spring Valley and in Ramapo.
and that's
And it shows that it's not the code enforcers can't do anything if
Right.
the legal system doesn't back them up.
But listen, the inspectors at that address you're talking about now, I have tried repeatedly over a period of years, including this new private consultant in Spring Valley, and then from what I'm told, elected officials in that community in the village of Spring Valley intercede and have interceded in the past, and this is being multiplied all over.
Yep.
All right, thank you. Legislator Foley. And Legislator Weir.
Yes, I want to thank you for the presentation. That said, I don't think a municipality that runs the way that Spring Valley does is in the position to be changed by someone they hire. As skilled as you seem to be, it's my understanding that you answer to the Spring Valley Board and or the mayor. And, I've seen on video the mayor, curse out and say quite vulgar, nasty things to elected officials, to the public, to anyone he pleases. And really, with the amount of, law enforcement and other folks that seem to have to go into that town, village hall and take evidence out, I don't think, as skillful as you are, I don't think you're in a position to change that culture and those habits there. And there's really a culture up there where pretty much if you can make $1, go make it, and consequences be damned. I want to ask you, who hires and fires you?
It would be the mayor with the village board of trustees to approve whether I'm there or not. And I'll tell you right now, if it comes down to a point, because I answer to New York State code, the certification they're under. At any point in time, a village trustee, the mayor, or anybody else for that matter, tells me not to do my job, I'm walking out the door.
Well, you're going to be walking out the door without a check, though.
That's fine.
Thank you, Legislator Foley. Legislator Weir. Thank you, Mr. Chair. And what you just said before is even more refreshing. For you to say that I'm not beholden upon anyone else. I have a job to do. It's New York State. It's the code. And if anyone tells me anything other than that, I'm walking out the door without a check. On record, it is a little bit comforting. So for that, I would like to thank you. And
All right, gentlemen. I think we're going to, that's why I say this is part A. We'll continue. We're here next week?
Yes.
Okay, so we'll be here next week. The discussion will follow. I want to wish all our fellow firefighters a Merry Christmas, Merry Kwanzaa.
No more tragedies between
No
now
more
and-
tragedies between now and then.
I just have a quick question for Gordon specifically. Several years ago, I met with a couple of state and county officials concerning the difficulties getting inspections done. And I actually, if Gordon recalls, crashed a meeting at the Fire Training Center to discuss the same thing. Now, my question is, to Gordon specifically, seeing as how you've obviously been instrumental in the involvement of the outside agencies and the county with respect to the hopeful correction of the chronic lack of fire safety inspections in Spring Valley, not to mention the known illegal occupancies, can you detail the progress being made or the approach plan? You know, being that I've done these meetings and reached out, you know my interest is sincere.
Well, caller, it's a very interesting question, and I don't have any answers because you have to ask Mr. Day. We've sort of been locked out of any discussions as to what's taking place, so I have no idea why. I mean, we have uncovered this for years. We were instrumental in getting the state's involvement and uncovering the fact that they were ineffective. You know, the whole monitoring system was a joke and ineffective, and the problem is getting worse, not getting better. So I don't know why. I'm not sure. Only Mr. Day can probably answer that. I have no idea why we're not included, and I can't answer any of your questions. So I have no idea, literally no idea, what's taking place. Zero.
Well, that's disheartening that you can't answer because you've always been a resource.
No, thanks. I'm talking to the Legal Housing Task Force, and Coupon's involved also, but the Legal Housing Task Force was a driving force in bringing this to light since 2009. We started in 2009. It became very apparent that equal and safe building and fire code enforcement is not being implemented here in Rockland County in multiple municipalities, and it's getting worse because it's spreading. And it's more than just Spring Valley. I mean, we had a terrible line of duty death there, and then death of a civilian. And quite frankly, in the early days of the fire, Chris said he would have been surprised if 25 people died in that fire. It was so bad. And we had one just before that, the month before, at Marty's Supermarket, which was beyond disgraceful on the town of Rampo's part. So right now, I can't answer you because we're not included in anything. Zero.
So Gordon and Clark, I will answer you partially on this, is that the county, the village, and the state have been working together. There is progress being made, albeit slow. We'll know more in a few weeks. That's all I can tell you. We've had conference calls with each agency, several occasions, and meetings with the county executive office. So things are going in the right direction. I will tell you that. It just takes time.
If I
there must be a reason why we're not included in the discussion. So probably no one.
If I could jump in,
has the amount of information we've accumulated over the years.
I know that this has been on the forefront of everyone's mind, and I think being that the public are the ones that are supposed to be served and protected, maybe something should be disseminated to the public so that they know that there is progress.
Yeah,
this has been years in coming.
Yeah,
I worked for 22 years and witnessed the tendency and the direction that things are going.
No, I
spoke up and tried to get corrections, but I was locked out and targeted, amongst other things.
So understand also too that that the order only came down from the state. On November 15th and November 14th. So from that order where when they said the county, hey, listen, county, you're going to take over and oversee the enforcement program there. It's a lot has happened in that short time frame. So that order just came down. Understand that the county is working hard on many different levels and with many different thoughts and ideas. So. In due time, I know this has been a long, ongoing. It's been years and years and years. And, however, we were preaching patience, and things are going in the right direction. So
I brought it to light in 2015 or so thereabout, and I know that there's two philosophies in this world: either the squeaky wheel gets the grease, or the nail that sticks out gets hammered down. I'd like to know which one, and I know the public wants to know which one it's going to be.
Oh, and listen, like Gordon said, the state had oversight there. That obviously didn't work out, otherwise the state wouldn't be, dictating to the county that now we want you to oversee us. So,
thanks, caller. It was a good call.
Very good call.
Hit a nerve with me. So
yeah, we know that. Yep, there's no doubt about that. All right, you're on the air.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi. Chris, it's Michael. Michael, how you doing?
Hey, Michael.
Hey, Michael.
Hey, Gordon, how you doing?
All right.
Listen, one of I'm getting a tremendous amount of communication from all over Rockland, specifically in Spring Valley, about what are we doing, and that they're glad that they've assigned someone to Spring Valley that's going to look into and straighten out all of the illegal stuff that is going on there with the housing. And what I'm having to communicate to them is that we haven't heard anything. No one has contacted Coupon at all. And I'm a member of the Legal Housing Task Force, and nobody has contacted them regarding, I mean, they have not been invited to participate in this. I mean, this is one of the most important things that's going on in Rockland County right now. And I'm surprised that that the two organizations that are up front trying to prevent illegal housing and schools over the last several years has not been invited to participate in what's going on in Spring Valley.
Yeah, you heard the prior caller, and I could not answer his questions because we're not part. We haven't been included, and I have to ask our county executive today why Coupon and the Legal Housing Task Force is not being consulted. I don't know, something's not connecting here. Something's not right.
Well, from a Coupon's point of view, we're sick and tired of meeting with politicians, and the politicians is doing nothing but pacifying us and going off and doing nothing. We're going to go bigger. I mean, we're going to go to the federal government, to the governor herself, and to the federal government and ask, how come this isn't being handled? Because we know what's going to happen in Spring Valley. It's already from the presentation that this guy gave to the county legislature, talking about getting a handle on all of the violations. Getting a handle on the violations being nothing. We've submitted thousands of violations to Ramapo and to the county, and nothing happens. Why doesn't anything happen? Because it's not up to the first level is not doing anything. It's up to the courts. If they're not going to get this stuff settled in the courts and issue fines for these people that's doing it, nothing is going to change. They're going to declare, they're going to spend a couple of months saying we've got a handle on all of the violations. They're going to give awards and shake hands and do a press conference and go away, and the same crap is going to remain here. Nothing is going to change.
Nothing's going to change unless major changes take place.
I'm sorry that I'm taking up your time, but I'm very aggravated about this because of nothing is happening, and what the plan, as far as I could see from what this guy said to the county, he's going to be scrapping at the bottom of the problem, not at the top. The problem is at the top.
Yep.
And he's communicating with John Adario. John Adario is one of the main causes of the problem.
And so listen, John Adario is the Commissioner of State Codes, and he's part of the problem. If anybody in New York State is responsible for what's been taking place here, it's him.
So I think if we don't get the governor involved and the federal law enforcement involved, nothing is going to happen here.
Yeah. I think you're right. It's time to go bigger.
Yep. So anyway, I hate to call in and vent on your show, but it's just that something needs to change, and to pretend that something is going to change with what's going on now is a farce, and it's an embarrassment and an affront to everything that we've been trying to do over the last 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 years.
I agree with every word. I agree with every word.
If the politicians and the people that's running this guy that's supposed to be this guy that's supposed to be running this in Spring Valley do not want us to be involved in it, well, I guess they have let us know because they haven't contacted anybody. They know who we are. They know who we are, from the county executive to all of the supervisors and the mayors. And there were 13 Coupon organizations that is very aggravated about this.
Well, thanks, Mike, for calling in, Mike. Thanks for calling in. It's 10 o'clock. I had about 20 other things I wanted to bring up, but that was cut off by these phone calls the last 2 minutes. So who wants to be a volunteer? It's called Who Wants to Be a Volunteer. So we'll be back next week. Have a good week, everybody.
Okay.
committees. Legislator Carey had a question, and then Chairman Knight.
Thank you very much. Mr. McCary, just I have a couple questions. First of all, who do you work for in this?
I work for McCary Property Management LLC.
No, I mean in this capacity that you presented us. Are you, just so everyone's on the same page, you're employed by Village of Spring Valley?
The Village of Spring Valley has contracted my company, yes.
Okay, second question. Are you working on this by yourself from your team, or do you have an RE?
Yes, I'm a sole proprietor, yes.
Okay. You've talked repeatedly about the resource issue. Are you aware that this issue's been looked at for years in this county, and there's a task force that probably has all the information you need in their Rolodex and a database that they can hand you to make your life easier? Are you aware of that, and have you spoken to them, or do you plan on speaking to them?
I was aware of the task force. I didn't know what their role was, other than from what I read in the New York State decree. I am all open to any help that's provided, so yeah, I would love to take that information and meet with them and go over what I can.
And as a former consultant, it was kind of clear to me that you're taking the approach of this has been successful in 20 other, whatever, how many other places you've been doing this, sounds like a long time, and I'm sure you're very capable. But this is not a cookie cutter situation. Never has the state taken over or potentially taken over a village. And I think that this is not about process, which is municity and all the other stuff, filling out the forms. It's about execution. And how your plan, and I don't expect you to answer it tonight, although you did give us a lot of information, that's the core of this problem, not process. It's people not following the process. How do you manage that? And I think that's something that you had a couple analogies. I think what I heard tonight is the baby's drowned and then you're worried about college. So I understand the room and stuff. Those are just stories. We lost a life here, and I think that has to be forefront. Whatever we come up with, or you come up with, you have to understand that the community is invested in this because of what happened, and very, very concerned. And it's not just another consulting gig and one guy by himself. I don't know if anybody told Spring Valley they couldn't bring more of your team on board. I would hope that, again, I don't want an answer. I hope that you're not the only one doing this.
I agree with you. It comes down to lives. That's the main goal, is to protect lives. Unfortunately, yes, we lost that, but we need to move forward and get this. And again, when I use my analogies, yes, we have to think about college. I understand yours as well. With babies drowning, but we're thinking about college. Still need to keep that grand scope of getting that baby to the hospital and following up with doctor's appointments to make sure that the lungs are good and clear. So yeah, we're thinking all that, and yes, right now I am getting that baby out of the water. It's just not going to happen overnight.
Last thing, I just strongly urge you to reach out to that task force that have people with the expertise. As it said, you were part of fire safety. That's the background of all these people. You'll be talking to brothers, and I think this would be a big miss if you didn't do that.
I agree. Thank you for that information.
You had, the end of your testimony, you had quoted or paraphrased the former commissioner of codes, saying that we're prevented from doing our job. What do you think he meant by that? Prevented by who?
Well, I asked that, and the first time I heard it was in 2003 when Roy Scott, who was the commissioner before him, said that we were being prevented by the second floor. I didn't know what the second floor meant. And I found out there was the governor's office, apparently. That's how it's referred to in state government, second floor. This This commissioner wasn't the only one who told me that. Other department heads have told me the same thing, that they are being prevented from doing their jobs. I've had commissioners apologize to me and say, we know you're right, but we're being prevented. Attorneys for the Secretary of State's office have told us we can't go into this community. We can't take action.
Can you give me a synopsis, in your professional opinion, of the monitor's work?
She's a friend. However, the only time she really spoke to me this whole time that she was at as a monitor was on the local radio station. I or someone else on the radio said, we believe she's drinking Rampo's Kool-Aid. And she was very angry about that. That was my pretty much only interaction with her as a monitor. And I find that strange, since we were the ones out in the field seeing this and filing the complaints. And by the way, I might add, there were a group of women in the state education department. I call them women of valor. There was one woman who they came out in the field, found deplorable conditions in our private schools, really bad conditions, took photographs, took them back, and they actually got in trouble for this. Our district attorney at the time had to go to bat for this woman to make sure she didn't get fired. And they have a codes expert, he's an architect, he agreed, but wouldn't come forward. And the state of New York is still subsidizing schools that have dangerous conditions in them.
My final question is, if there's one or two things that you believe after today that we should be doing, legislatively or otherwise, what, in your professional opinion, would those one or two items be?
Well, I think we do need some additional legislation, but I think what I said a few minutes ago, there is I don't know if it's organized, but your departments are being, and I can't tell you how many commissioners have told me this over and over, they're being told they can't do their jobs. Let them use their good judgment and their training, and let them do what's right.
Is never to have another Black Sunday that claimed the lives of 3 New York City firefighters seriously injured, 4 others, and 2 of them hailed from Rockland County. Today is the 15th anniversary of Black Sunday. It was the deadliest day for the FDNY since the World Trade Center attack on September 11, 2001. The Bronx fire started on the 3rd floor of a tenement of the East 178th Street, the Grand Concourse, and may have been caused by an extension cord to a portable heating setting fire to a mattress. The alarm call was made at 7:59 on a cold, windy morning, the day after a blizzard and snow hampered the engines in reaching the end address. The closest hydrant was frozen. Jeff Cool survived the 4-story fall on that January from a burning Bronx building with illegal rooms. The former hockey player broke 13 ribs, both soldiers, his pelvis in 4 places, cracked bones in his spine, neck, fractured his skull in 2 spots. He spent nearly 3 weeks in a coma. He lost 72 units of blood. His body was put back together, as he says, with crazy glue and duct tape, and lived with survivor's guilt, post-traumatic stress. And Jeff can't walk well, and arthritis is taking over his shoulders and wrists. We call him in Rockland a miracle man. What's the reasons for this? The unlawful dissecting a home boils down to one factor. That's greed and money. These landlords buy cheap properties, hire contractors, mostly unlicensed, willing to subdivide illegally. The small rooms are rented to the tenants, many of them immigrants, for about $500. That's cash. No checks, cash. The electrical and piping work is often haphazardly done, and the homes frequently lack the smoke and carbon monoxide detectors required by law. In one Spring Valley abode, 28 people were living in a single house. The landlord was collecting about $160,000 cash, tax-free, In North Park, Stony Point, fire authorities discovered a garage converted into many tiny living quarters. Town around Poe and the village of Spring Valley, the high-density sprawl, which you have said in your report, the community is leading a housing availability crisis. Unfortunately, the weapons of mass construction and its unchecked expansion has led to the dubious building and construction practices, including converting single and two-family homes into multiple dwelling units without the requisite permits and site plans. A number of private schools known as yeshivas, which were often located in a trailer or a room within a home that is designated as a single family, but was subsequently converted into a multi-family property. The severe lack of available space for suitable housing, schools, and synagogues, combined with an ineffective code enforcement, resulted in a continuing development chaos. The Rockland County Illegal Housing Task Force testifies to you today that Ramapo is not meeting its responsibility of protecting its residents and first responders. They're just not. From the dangers imposed by the improper constructions, unlicensed contractors, and the seeking of forgiveness and the permission attitude. The current state of mistrust, and along with the history of corruption, the culture of noncompliance that plagues the town of Ramapo is now infecting, since your report, the town's surrounding villages, Spring Valley, Pomona, Chestnut Ridge, Air Mile, Kaiser, New Square, and it's still widening the continuing development chaos. Rockland Fire Services said enough. Your bills, we all support them, every single one of them. However, you have current law, so I was asked to ask this committee should demand the Department of State Building and Codes to give the authority, which they do have now, give it to the County of Rockland, the county executive, to enforce the building and codes instead of the town of Ramapo. Why? Because they have their own arbitrary judges. They don't fall to the whims of an elected official. The committee should demand to have the second floor, Governor Cuomo, take the handcuffs off the state department heads and staff to do their jobs. They supposedly have been trained, hired to do without the political and bureaucratic interference. In Yiddish, we call it bullshit. This committee should demand equal enforcement to all, not to some builders and developers. Respectively submitted.
Thank you both for your testimony, and I do want to point out I've gotten to work with Mr. Schwartz for some time now, and he and the group that he works with have poured an enormous amount of energy and time and resources into bringing light to this issue in Rockland County. And I'm sure my colleagues recognize the passion from which you speak. And you didn't mention it, but I will, that you're also a firefighter yourself.
Life member, Spring Valley, 42 years.
And thank you for all of that.
Senator May.
Thank you. Yeah, I have a few questions for you, Mr. Daniels, also about the judicial side of things. Do you think sort of bypassing the judges and using administrative adjudication is more effective? and should be expanded?
You're-
Both of you would say yes.
You're definitely heading in the right direction. Absolutely. I mean, you do it on an administrative level, you can get things handled a lot faster. You can get the fines. You can send the message to the people that you're trying to send that message to. When it's that elected judge or official that's sitting the bench, and they don't have, it doesn't matter if the minimums are set at 1,000 or 7,500 or whether it's a second or third violation. Administratively may not be a bad way to go, and we would definitely support that.
And how do you feel about tacking the fines onto property taxes as a way of collecting the fines?
There are municipalities that do that right now, and it is a successful process. Absolutely. We would be in support of that.
Let the record show thumbs up from Mr. Schwartz on both of these
Absolutely.
as well.
We do that right now in Rockland County. You mentioned the Rockland County Housing Initiative. That started, just to tell you about the fines, because they used the administrative judge. It went from a 3-department now to a 10-department. The message is getting there. And the fines went from 5,000 now to 10,000. And then it doubles. So they're getting the message. We just now initiated with the consumer protection, which the county never had, and as an enforcement. And we started now with a one-man shop. We're now at a two-man shop, and their message is getting out to get out of all the other unlicensed contractors that are coming in. So it does help. Administrative law judges, if we could have our own housing court, that would be even better. Take it out of the towns, take it out of the municipalities, give it to the county, and let the county do it, or put it into some type of where they don't have it. The most frustrating part is that we have people that are paid to do their job and they're not doing it. And they're handcuffed here from the state, from the second floor in some part of this building or the other buildings, and they're not able to do their jobs. It's a shame.
And then just one other question about allowing tenants to sue proactively their landlords for poor housing conditions. Is that something that you support as well?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely. Because they're taking advantage. You come down and you see what they have done. They have destroyed neighborhoods. I mean, at the same time you're doing this, we're having a hearing because of all the so-called, hate, the distrust and mistrust when you have a certain community that's getting everything. I mean, I find it fascinating. You try to get the New York State Tax Department to look into what can we do with the cash receipts? They don't want to be bothered. You try to get an appointment with the Attorney General to come down, hasn't responded, but you get a machete type of act in a certain part of the community, and guess what? Everybody's here. You talk about those who have and those who don't. So who are you going to go with? So that's I'm not, there's one thing you'll see. I tell it straight it is. I don't go into the politics, but it's a lot of bureaucratic nonsense and people's lives are at stake. And I will tell you that if anyone dies on our watch, you're not going to be able to stop. And that's the problem. You can have as much as Sarah Wallace reports and everything else. They're not doing it.
And I have the same intolerance for injustice and agree with absolutely everything that both of you said, and especially your sentiment about people not being able to do their jobs or positions not being filled. It's inadequate government, and most New Yorkers have no idea what's even going on. And I think that's why we're here today. And I'm 100% committed to transparency and to holding people accountable.
So tell the governor to take the handcuffs of the building and State Department.
I'd be happy to do that right now. So someone pick up the phone happily. I will. I'm committed to that.
Give it to the Office of Fire and Prevention. Take it out of this building codes because they're corrupt.
There's lots of corruption everywhere. Thank you for sharing that. Okay, my question is more of a hypothetical, and also if this is something that already happens, then please excuse my ignorance. I just don't know. But as you were talking, it feels like the landscape of code enforcement, it falls mainly on municipalities, of course, that's the reality. But the landlord is not really held accountable in the sense that if they are providing housing for someone, are they required to certify that to anybody at any time, yearly, biannually, whatever, the beginning of when they're going to provide housing, that the housing that they are providing is actually compliant with the building codes? Do you think that is something that we should require? And what would that look like from landlords or from property owners who I could imagine would be really not pleased with that type of regulation?
If I can jump in, because he'll give you the other side, I'll give you my side.
Okay.
I can tell you most of the buildings that are in the current court system right now in the town of Ramapo, most of their violations are no C of Os. We want that rental registry to have that proof. I got inspectors that are not doing their jobs, and there are buildings. The community center that I live in, my over 55, I am still waiting. We've been there since 2007. No CO in the building and no certificate, no fire certificate that we meet all the requirements. Still waiting for that. And it's 3 years into it, and I'm a firefighter. The second part is...
Can I pause on that? Why are you waiting 3 years? What is the reason? I mean, what's the real reason?
Competence.
Yeah, okay.
And then the developer has money. They don't want to rock the boat.
Got it. Public financing, but we're not at that.
No, but you don't have to pull the
hearing,
financing, but take it out so you can go. Where am I going to take it to? So if I go ahead and take it to the town of Ramapo, and which, by the way, if you allow, I can't even go now to zoning planning board hearings in the village of Spring Valley or in the town of Ramapo. I can't speak because I'll be arrested as a public nuisance, because that's how passionate I get. So the issue becomes that you need to be able to take it out, give it to the people that will do the jobs. Your bureaucrats up here ain't doing their jobs. They're not. And they're going to kill people. And they're going to have blood on their hands.
They already have. Well,
yes.
That has been the result of inaction.
I'll just repeat it one more time. Take the handcuffs off and leave us alone. Give it to the county executive. We can get it done. And you know how it pays for it? So pays for it with the fines.
Yep.
We take the property, we confiscate the cars, everything. I don't need you to fund it. We can fund it. Let the bad people do it.
Yeah.
I don't need your funds.
Thank you very much.
Just one more question. We talked about other potential forums to adjudicate these things, kind of administrative forms, but to the extent you both made the point that the courts aren't necessarily taking these things as seriously as you think they ought to. Is there any, I mean, it's hard to legislate, it's hard to pass we're legislators, we pass laws, but we also have oversight responsibilities and, the ability to speak publicly about issues. But do you have any specific, I mean, it's very hard to pass a law that says judges shall take such and such more seriously. Is there any suggestions on how to alter the culture of the judiciary on this issue?
Put them into administrative judges, have housing courts, and make it the way Rockland County, you come down, I mean, you have even acknowledged how the RCI does it, the Codes Initiative, and guess what? They have an administrative judge. And all his job is to make sure they get the fines. That's it. And as long as he judged fairly, but he isn't politically put there. So he doesn't have to answer to the constituency, because that's even worse. You can go into a court and you can see certain people, they'll get a low fine. If you get to another part, they're going to get nailed. And it's not equal. It's not equal justice for all. It's not. It's a shame. It should be a court. It should never have been allowed to be in there. I mean, it's common sense, because all they're looking for, as you heard from the Attorney General, we only want compliance. I want them to be held accountable, and there's a price to pay. Because who are they taking advantage? They're taking advantage of two people. One is the tenants in there, and they're absolutely right. They're going to, and then once you do the fines, that's exactly they'll fear. And that's one of the things that we have to balance when we go in. But damn it, because the firefighters are fighting it and going into what will be an SRO or an illegal wall, similar to what happened on that Black Sunday, we're putting our lives on it. That's what we volunteer for. No difference than the FDNY or whatever one's paid or not. We still got the same stuff. And that's what we go into and go for. And the code enforcement officers, most of them, I would say 95, want to do their jobs. But the political hacks that are on top of them say, look the other way. I am still waiting. You had it in your report. 201. It's 201 Route 306, 261 Route 306, 265 306, 267 Route 306. Today is January 23rd, 2020. January 4th in 2019, there was a Supreme Court of Rockland County to get an eviction order to evict the building. Nothing has been done.